Okay, I think this question may be somewhat connected to the last one, but I've had a few questions that have come in, so I'm just going to answer or amalgamate two of them. Questions that have come in about the 2520. It says, why is the church not educating members about the 2520? And then kind of going along with that, young people are getting involved with the 2520, but our leaders are not teaching about it. What is your opinion on it? So I'll throw that out to the panel, and whoever wants to pick it up can.
You know, somebody exposed this to me a few years ago, and I was against it, and I began to write an article. And when I wrote the article, it was only supposed to be about 5 to 8 pages. But then when I was done with it, it turned into a 36-page booklet. And I began to share it, refuting the teachings of the 2520. Basically, it comes from Leviticus 26. And when you read Leviticus 26, it's talking about God establishing a covenant with his people. And when God was establishing the covenant with his people, he wanted them to obviously obey the covenant. But the problem is that the people of God were rebellious. And as a result of their rebellion, God began to say something in Leviticus, the 26th chapter, where he said, if you do not obey what I've told you to do, these punishments will happen to you. Then this is where the 2520 movement was birthed. Then God says, and if you still will not obey after I've punished you, I will punish you 7 times more. It seems as if the 2520 movement has forgotten the word more was there, and all they did was focus on 7 times. And what they did was they took the term 7 times, and they began to do calculations and said, well, wow, when you calculate 7 times, it adds up to 2,520. William Miller taught this very strongly. He believed vehemently with Joshua Himes, and they believed in this 2520 prophecy, which was basically a second witness to lead us from 677 BC all the way to 1844. And William Miller taught it, Joseph Bates, James White, many of our pioneers began to believe this and teach it as well. But then approximately around the time of 1863, there was a shift. A lot of our pioneers no longer looked at the Leviticus 26 as a statement of prophecy. They began to understand it. Wait a minute, this is a statement of severity. In other words, 7 times more. It's kind of like if I say, if you don't do this, I will punish you. And if you don't listen, I'm going to punish you 7 times more. That's a statement of severity, not a statement of prophetic calculation. So what happened was a lot of the people got caught up because Ellen White endorsed the 1843 and 1850 charts that had the 2520 on it. And they said, because Ellen White endorsed it, it must be legitimate. And literally, this is one of the strongest points of their argument to date. The problem is this. You remember yesterday I showed you that book, Daniel and Revelation. And we saw that Ellen White endorsed the book, Daniel and Revelation. So I was talking with a 2520 believer, and it was actually here in the UK. And I remember I was talking to him. I said, so you believe in the 2520 because Ellen White endorsed the chart? And he said, that's right. I said, do you believe Ellen White endorsed Daniel and Revelation? He said, absolutely. I said, are you aware that Daniel and Revelation has an entire chapter refuting the 2520? Got kind of quiet. You understand? So there's a lot of confusion. Truth as well as health, as the good doctor just stated, they were progressive for the people of God. They used to believe the Sabbath was always beginning at 6 o'clock. They used to believe a lot of different things, but there was a progression in understanding. And as the progression in understanding took place, hence the 1863 chart, W.W. Simpson's charts, whom Ellen White endorsed emphatically, that has no 2520 on it. I mean, there's more than enough evidence to make it blazingly clear that neither Ellen White, the Bible, and truly our pioneers, as they gain greater understanding, endorse this so-called prophecy. It's a statement of severity in Leviticus 26. It is not a statement of prophetic calculation.
If I could just add, and I think it's an important point about how we link arguments to make judgments. When I started out in ministry, some of you guys would have heard of it. There's a tragic episode in Waco where we lost a number of young people, and a lot of it was bad. It was bad Bible study amongst anything else. And so, for example, they were going into the Old Testament and reading the prophets, and it said, in the last days, the temple of the Lord shall be exalted. People say, are we living in the last days? Yes, we are. Then we need to go to the temple of the Lord, Jerusalem. Bad hermeneutic, bad interpretation. As Elder Lemon has said, because Ellen White endorsed something, if you take that rationale, if you go into the Old Testament, then we would be polygamists. Hello. Now, were they led by God? Of course they were. But there is also a progressive revelation and understanding. And just because somebody understood something at a particular time, or should we say something was practiced at a particular time, does not endorse it for 2015. We need to step back and actually look. And Leviticus and that particular passage is not, in my understanding, a prophetic passage to be understood that way. And if you really want to twist things, I can get text and put stuff together and twist it all out of context. And then you'll think, oh, there's the truth. It isn't truth. We need a good interpretation on Scripture at all points.
Elder Lemon, would you be able to give me that copy of your document that I can make that available to the young people? Happily. Okay. Put it on the NEC Youth website.